Hello, and welcome to Ariel Glassman's Fireside Give Big Chat, a part of the Fundraising Accelerator series from 501 Commons for this year's Give Big campaign. Today, we're going to talk about peer-to-peer fundraising. And you might be asking yourself, why should I bother with a peer-to-peer campaign? That sounds like a lot of work, and my normal Give Big campaign does just fine. Well, here's a few reasons that you should consider it. Number one, what does your inbox look like on Give Big? If you're anything like me, every organization that I've ever shown the slightest interest in suddenly reappears like the ghost of giving past, trying to get me to give to their cause. It can be overwhelming, and even as somebody who actually helps organizations create these strategies and emails, if I'm overwhelmed, imagine how your donors feel. Now, imagine opening your inbox on GiveBIG to find an email from your best friend or your mom or a colleague inviting you to support their favorite organization, and some reasons why. I'm willing to bet you open that email first and you're more likely to give to it. And that's the power of peer-to-peer. Another reason to do it is that it has multi-generational appeal. Baby boomers love peer-to-peer. Xers love peer-to-peer. Millennials love peer-to-peer. Gen Z loves peer-to-peer. Everybody loves peer-to-peer. How many things in life can you say that about, right? All the generations collecting behind one thing. It's beautiful. And it will help you get new donors. That's the next reason. About 26% of donors on peer-to-peer pages last year at GiveBIG were new. And so, this can be an acquisition machine if you let it. But then you have a responsibility to steward those donors organizationally and bring them closer to you outside of the relationship they have with their peer-to-peer fundraiser. Or they're likely going to end up as part of that 80% of new donors that statistically you'll lose and they won't renew next year. So make sure that you grab them once you've got them and don't just assume that that relationship with their peer-to-peer fundraiser will do the job forever. A couple other tips for success. Quality, not quantity. It's better to work with 5 to 10 really good, committed peer-to-peer fundraisers than 25 mediocre or uncommitted peer-to-peer fundraisers. And the first step in figuring that out is thinking about who your most probable peer-to-peer participants might be. And I think it's easy to fall into the trap that you should immediately go for major donors or your wealthiest donors. But in reality, peer-to-peer success comes from commitment to the mission, not necessarily financial capacity. So focus on those who have a long-time relationship, who give consistently, give consecutively, especially if they're consecutive or consistent donors to give big. Some of them might have a high financial capacity, but more importantly, they've shown you that they're attached to your mission. So if the going gets tough and they hit a wall in their progress, they are more likely to stick with the campaign and keep pushing. And how to keep pushing, right? Part of that is you. It's on you to support your peer-to-peer fundraisers, and your goal is to make it blazingly easy for them to do this and for them to succeed. I always recommend a really robust toolkit that is given to someone when they're signing up, or even before, especially if it shows them how easy it is and it's not a big deal. And that's going to have a ton of information in it, from the who, what, when, where, why, to sample text, sample social posts, graphics, hashtags. 501 Commons has a great example toolkit on the resource page, and you should definitely check it out if you're thinking about making a toolkit. I also like to recommend an info session online. Everybody's Zooming. And you can record it if people aren't available for it, but people learn different ways, right? Somebody may not want to look at a wall of text, but they might want to show up and be able to ask thoughtful questions, and that'll make them feel more comfortable and more willing to do it. That is just the beginning, though. It should be followed by a series of support communications that deploy the advice and strategies in the toolkit and the info session in greater depth, right? Offers to help them on page setup, examples of great pages other fundraisers have created, new email or social templates, tips on who to reach out to, right? And there's actually data that shows that somebody getting 3 to 4 emails from the organization to help them figure it out after they sign up for peer-to-peer means they're going to raise more money from more donors. So be proactive. You are the cheerleader. That's going to help them and you raise more money. Incentives are a thing in peer-to-peer, although I really think this is probably worth it if you have a big group of peer-to-peer fundraisers, but use excess items from your raffle or your auction, and really give people a reason to be the person who raises the most, or perhaps the person who brings the most new donors to the table or has the most donors on their peer-to-peer page. I actually like those two a lot better than the first one. It feels a little more equitable to me and acknowledges that 5 people who gave $1,000 right now might not be as valuable to you in the long run as 15 people who started at 50, right? There's no way to tell which of those is going to pan out better. And I think it's really exciting and worth it to focus on the process and not just the financial outcome. Speaking of which, measurement and evaluation is a thing. So in terms of financial outcomes versus process, I like to look beyond revenue, et cetera, to other indicators like number of peer-to-peer participants and the average number of gifts to your peer-to-peer pages. Those are things you can track on year over year and get a sense of how it's doing. And also maybe the percent of your goal overall of the total that you raised that came from peer-to-peer gifts, and maybe the percent of your new donors that came from peer-to-peer. It's really worth checking to seeing if this is actually driving new donors to you, or if these are donors who are connected to your peer-to-peer fundraisers that are already on your radar. It could happen either way, but my hunch is you'll see a lot of new donors in there, and it's really worth staying on top of that metric too. Finally, don't forget to ask for feedback, right? If your job is to make it easy, you should ask them if you made it easy. You know, an anonymous survey would be good, or well-placed phone call or email to some folks you know pretty well. Don't forget to close the loop so that the next time you do this, whatever you can do better, you do better. All right, that's it for today. I will see you guys all again soon.